Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host, and I've been doing this for about 10 years now. We got a lot of episodes. You should really subscribe to the show. Go do that wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can find all the past episodes over at keystotheshop.com. Check out the resources page or learning page. We've got a webinar going right now, so you can still sign up for that if you're there in time for our onboarding and training webinar coming up this Thursday, actually, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested in coaching and consulting, you know where to reach out, Chris at keystotheshop.com. I work one-on-one with coffee shop owners and their teams to help them make their coffee shop better. And people opening coffee shops have trusted Keys to the Shop to help them as an advisor, as a guide along the path to opening their cafe. So Chris at keystotheshop.com is where you go to set that up, and let's have a conversation. I'm sure it's going to be valuable, even if we just get to know one another, and I could probably help a little bit even on just this free call. So now today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Barista Series from Pacific. Selecting the right kind of plant-based beverage is so important. I would encourage you to go to pacificfoodservice.com, get samples of the Barista Series, and try it for yourself. This is a product that has been just crafted by the feedback of the community, literally. It is made for baristas, tested by some of the best baristas before the product is released. I, again, think that tasting is believing here. So go check them out, reach out, get samples, try it for yourself. If you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your customers, then you need to be trying the Barista Series from Pacific. So for the third time now, we're going to welcome back to the show. I think it's the third, maybe even more. But Kwame Christian, my friend, somebody who I have gotten to know really well over the last 10 years of being in a mastermind group with him and getting to know him as a professional. And I am really excited to have him back on the show to talk about taking big swings in your business and in your career. So if you're not familiar with who Kwame Christian is, he is the director of the American Negotiation Institute. He is a best-selling author, two-time best-selling author, and a really sought-after speaker, the host of the world's #1 negotiation podcast, Negotiate Anything. He was recently featured on the Mel Robbins Podcast and is dedicated his life and his career to empowering other people and helping people overcome anxiety, fear, emotions associated with difficult conversations and negotiations, and navigating this world of interactions with your business, with your staff, with your coworkers, with anybody really. He is someone who branded the framework of compassionate curiosity. If you listen to our past episodes, you'll hear him talk about that. Kwame is also an attorney and has a bachelor's of arts in psychology and a master's in public policy, and also has a Juris Doctorate. Kwame brings a multidisciplinary approach to his work, and recently is working on another pivot in his business and the way he is showing up in the world to help people with his concept of taking big swings only. And I got to be backstage, at the ground level of where this kind of bubbled up in his mind and his heart, and now see it starting to form up after so many years of Negotiate Anything. And this reminded me of how we operate our businesses and some of the ways that we pivot in our coffee shops. Sometimes we feel like we are just stuck in the rhythm of what we're doing, but we know we want to do something more, but we feel afraid to do it. And this episode today with Kwame is all about helping you take big swings. In other words, to make big decisions, even if there's a little fear there or a lot of fear there. Do so intelligently, do so with confidence, and thinking through, but not holding yourself back from something good, or not even holding your business or your people back. So that's what we're going to talk with Kwame about today. I hope you enjoy this. Here now is my conversation with your friend and mine, Kwame Christian. Well, hey, Kwame, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, same. This conversation today, we've gotten to know your material. You've really made a difference in the way that people think about conflict and negotiation. And I was thinking the other day, as you know, I'm a coach and consultant for coffee shops. There's a lot of decisions that people make around their own personal growth. And I was just on a call before this one talking to somebody about there being the bottleneck in the business, and the growth that they experience kind of sets up the business to grow. I think you've seen this many, many times. And this happens to coincide with what's happening with your business, with Negotiate Anything, which is now Big Swings Only. And I want you to explain a little bit about this. And this dovetails so nicely because it's a big move for you. You're evolving, but the people that have relied on you for a lot of guidance in the way that they have their careers or their businesses guided, I mean, they're going to see this as, hey, this guy is doing it too. Tell us a little bit about Big Swings Only and the philosophy behind it.
Yes, well, thank you again. It's great. And for the person listening, just know, sometimes you hear podcasters, they're like, "Oh, I love talking to you and everything," and they only love talking to each other like in the parameters of the podcast. Yeah. So Chris and I are real friends. Chris was at my house a couple months ago. Yeah. We really vibe. So this is great. So for me, it is a very, very fascinating time in my career because most people would know me as the negotiation guy. And I'm the CEO of the American Negotiation Institute. It's been my brand. It still is. But we're making a shift. And so after 1,800 plus episodes and 10 years of doing Negotiate Anything, we're transitioning to a new show, which is called Big Swings Only. And it'll seem like a really big pivot until I explain it. So in 2025, I started demoing this mindset, this mentality, where I said, I'm going to just test out this hypothesis. And so it was this. If you have the mindset and skill set to hit the ball out of the park, the only thing that holds you back is whether or not you're willing to take a big swing. So I said, okay, well, what would it look like if I just swung for the fences on everything? If I'm doing something in business, in life, whatever, I'm just going to try to do it to the full extent. And it's been miraculous to see what's happened. Been on the Mel Robbins Podcast and some other massive shows. After being on that show, it's gotten me on other shows. Great opportunities to collaborate with brilliant minds like Simon Sinek and work with some of the largest companies in the world. And it's really interesting because I'm recognizing that other people are probably experiencing the same thing. We don't even fully appreciate in how many ways we are playing smaller than what we are capable of. So there are two philosophical underpinnings of this approach, because I think it's really easy to just kind of look at it surface level and say, okay, go big on everything. It's not just that. So again, we have the baseball mentality. You take big swings, more likely you're going to hit it out of the park. If you go for a bunt, it's very unlikely that you hit a home run, right? We can understand that part. But then there's a deeper philosophy, kind of inspired by Michelangelo, as he's chiseling the statue of David. And what he said is that I didn't build or create the statue of David. David was always in there. I just removed what was unnecessary. And so the cool thing is, it's not just about the outcomes and the achievements. It's about who you become in the process, because you're not going to win them all, as they say. You're not going to always achieve what it is that you're supposed to achieve, that you want to achieve. But in the process of going big and trying to achieve something greater, you become something greater in the process. That's the exciting part.
Nice. Well said. And what is it that holds people back from taking big swings? And why do we play small? I mean, sometimes it's okay to play small, I guess. It's not always going to be necessary to prove to yourself that you took a big swing, but what does it feel like to take a big swing that's a good swing and not just gratuitous or egocentric?
You need to know what your why is. You need to know who you are and who you want to become. Because in this process, sometimes the biggest swings that I take are sitting down and taking a break, right? Because for somebody who's a high achiever, you get almost addicted to the process of accomplishment. And then we start to get to a point where we can't distinguish between who we are and what we have accomplished. They're not the same thing, right? And so for me, a lot of times it's just recognizing that it is gratuitous or ego driven. And the big swing that I need is focusing on my mental health. Being more present was one of the biggest swings that I had to take. So it doesn't always look like a big swing from the outside looking in. So it has to start off with introspection. And then we have to consider what a belief is. A belief is just a thought that we have thought a lot of times to the point where it becomes a belief. That's it. And when you reverse engineer it to that point, then there are good thoughts that we have that are rooted in truth and reality, and then there are bad thoughts that we have that are not. And then we recognize that through repetition, it becomes something bigger, it becomes a belief. So we have to investigate these things. So to your original question, why do we play small? Sometimes it's because this information was downloaded into us from a young age from people who really cared about us. Hey, don't make a big deal. Think about me as an immigrant, a child of immigrants. Hey, stay quiet, keep your head down, work hard. You have to work twice as hard to get the same recognition, but just don't ruffle any feathers, right? Okay, that's good. That gets you a certain place. But then once you get to that place and you want to go somewhere else, you don't have the tools to get there. It might be something else where we say, we both have religious backgrounds, so money is the root of all evil. Okay, we can see that, but that does not mean that money itself is evil and the acquisition of it is inherently bad. Right? And so we might have these self-limiting beliefs around money that prevent us from actually moving toward it. And so the limitation is going to be different for different people in different contexts. And that's what makes it so tough, because it's not just about taking big swings. It's about making sure that those swings are worthy.
Yeah, there's a lot of security in sticking with what worked. If my business, let's bring it to a cafe, for example, it's a lot of your hard-earned money. You're either taking a loan out or using a lot of personal investment to put into this business. It's very emotional, and it's virtually the same for every entrepreneur that does this work. When they find something that works, it is like, oh, thank God! Like this, like this worked. I'm never moving from here. I'm never. It's like when a rescue animal finds that special owner. It's like, never we're gonna let this person go. But there's a little bit of a dysfunction, it feels like, with that, because it does, by what you're saying, it's like that's a limiting belief in that it parts of what you have in your cafe right now need to shift. And if that shift happens, it feels like you're back to square one. Like you're triggered to thinking, well, this is back to the days when I first started the coffee shop and I didn't have anything. So now it feels very scary, very fearful to change something that it technically is working. How do we get over the hump of changing something that is technically working to let it evolve to something perhaps better or more appropriate for ourselves or for our team or for our family?
We have to accept the reality that in many cases, our greatest goal as an entrepreneur is to achieve a psychological impossibility, which is certainty. So think about this. When it comes to predictability, when it comes to change and how the world is evolving, I will not cite the studies. You can look it up yourself, but just know, and you will feel it in your bones once you hear this too. The world is more unpredictable than ever before. We intuitively understand this, but studies have verified that too. So if we created a strategy in 2019, is it going to work in 2018, like in 2020? No, we had COVID. Okay, is it, when we think about the vastly different administrations we've been through, right? We went from Bush to Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump. We're everywhere. When you think about, okay, we finally came out of COVID, all I want is some stability. Hey, AI is coming everywhere, right? Global instability, geopolitics. There's no such thing as normal anymore. But when you think about how we were raised in many cases, the advice for what sage wisdom was when it came to your career is get a good job, keep it forever, retire, and die. And that, for entrepreneurs, all we want to do is get the entrepreneurial version of that. create a good business, figure out the strategy, work it, grow incrementally, and then leave it to your kids or whatever, right? But it's just not realistic. And so it's constantly shifting. And so what I've had to recognize, Chris, is that I just have to come to terms with the fact that wild, unpredictable things are going to be happening. And the best thing that I can do is focus on building an identity that is rooted in constant evolution. Adaptability is going to be one of the greatest tools that we have. And when I think about this mindset about big swings only, it's not so much about the activity as much as it is about the identity. And so the way that I started to do this is I started to just treat every week as a different experiment. Every day I get up and I say, who do I want to be and need to be in order to be successful? And when we think about behavior change in terms of the actual behaviors we need to do, we can run into a lot of friction. Oh, I need to do this, but then I have these beliefs that I need to overcome in order to do this. I have to kind of convince myself. It can be very difficult. But now I'm working on short-circuiting that to say, okay, I'm not going to try to do something. I'm going to focus on becoming a person who does certain things. And then the identity will make the decision for you. So they did studies on habits and getting people to vote. So instead of, what they found is that instead of trying to convince people why it's important to vote, what was much more effective was getting the person to see themselves as a voter. And once you see yourself as a voter, then what does a voter do? You vote. Right? And so instead of saying as a father, I want to do certain things to improve as a father, it's like, no, I want to be a better father who is more loving, who is more patient. And I state that identity, and then the identity will dictate the decisions that I make. And so once you start to think about how you can change behaviors on an identity-based level, now you put yourself in a big position for you to not only be more likely to actually engage in the behavior, but engage in it for the long term. So just giving an example, I'm going to give us like a trivial example to just show how quickly it could work. So I've in all of my relationships, I've always been the messy roommate, the mad professor. It's like, oh, Kwame's brilliant, but you see his room. What is that? And I just said, okay, you know what? I could be much more efficient as an entrepreneur and a professional if I just knew where everything was at all times. And I remember growing up looking at spy movies, and I said, but spies, they were alpha males, but they were always organized. They always knew where things were. I want to be like that. Okay, Kwame the spy, that's the identity. I always know where my stuff is. I know what I'm going to wear. I know where everything is. Everything is perfect. And then Whitney just all of a sudden was like, who are you? Who are you? I said, I decided to change, and that's it. So I'm not saying I want to do these things differently. It's like, who do I want to be? It's like, okay, Kwame the spy. Now it's fun, and now I'm organized. So you can just test drive these identities and give yourself the out and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for a week. Not even I'm going to do this. I'm going to be this for a week. Like I'm test driving a car or trying on new clothes. And if I don't like it, I can return it. And once I give myself that out, it reduces the friction so I can just do it instead of convincing myself to do it.
Wow, that's cool. I like the way you think. I wish I could think more like that. And I think a lot of people do. And I've said in the past, I think there's impulses that we have. And you and I know this book, Leadership and Self-Deception. The book is... one of the things it tells you to do is not betray yourself when you have the inclination and the impulse to do something positive and nice. And we always kind of betray that one all the time. You can obey that and become more of that person because it's still you. It's something that you pursued in some fashion internally, but you haven't given it the time of day outside of just thinking it. So when you say test drive that thing, I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense because I think about the word authenticity. And the way that I think today, sometimes it's code for stagnation.
Yes, you're so right, man. But think about it, because when, let's say, I hear this when it comes to communication. So I'll say, okay, this is so funny. I would say, all right, so what you need to do is when you're listening, you need to engage in more non-judgmental listening. So that's not just actually not judging them. It's also having the posture of somebody who is not judging the other person. Right now, the way you listen, incredibly judgmental. No matter what you're saying is happening internally. I see it in your face. It's very judgmental, and it's causing people to shut down, and that's what's causing the issues. So there's not the psychological safety that's required for the person to actually engage. And they say, okay, but here's the thing, Kwame, that's just who I am. I'm naturally very expressive. And I said, here's the thing, who you are is naturally unskilled. Like, don't tell me you're being authentic. Like, Michael Jordan as an authentic basketball player is bad at basketball until he practiced, right? So a lot of times, okay, if this is what you call authenticity, then tell me about any other skill. Do you drive? That's not authentic, because when you were born, you weren't driving either. So when people come at me with authenticity as a shield for improvement, you just have to be real. And this is the other thing that I said. When it comes to the identities, it's not even about being dismissive or, like being mean to yourself. It's just about being real. So this is my new rule. I can be whoever I want to be and do whatever I want to do. Do whatever I want to do as long as I do it understanding what it means. Okay. So I call it the kind of guy test. So I walk past the closet, and the closet's messy. And I say, there's a part of my brain that says, hey, listen, you said spies clean their closets. So you go to clean your closet? And I said, oh, I'm a little bit tired right now, so I'm not going to do it. I said, oh, okay, so you're the kind of guy that cannot overcome the physical burden of cleaning your closet for the next 3 minutes and 42 seconds. If that is your physical limit, Kwame, accept that. That's the kind of guy you are. And then I'm like, no. Right? It's like, okay, just own it, right? And then sometimes it's like, okay, I might have that negative orientation to the description, right? So you're the kind of guy who sits down. I'm like, well, I'm also the kind of guy, like, are you the kind of guy who sits down and watches TV right now? I'm like, yeah, because I'm the kind of guy who worked 16 hours yesterday. Oh, okay. We can accept that now.
Right.
So I think just having the purity of thought to identify behaviors and just call it like it is gives us the clarity to understand who it is that we want to be. So it's not really forcing ourselves into a specific decision or a specific activity, but allowing us to understand really what it does. Because a lot of times when you think about it in the moment, it's not a big deal. If I want to sit down in the middle of the day, especially if I've been working hard, that's fine. It's about being real about the consistency of the pattern. Where's the trajectory taking us? Because if it is a challenge that is really consistent, that we are consistently not stepping up to, then we have to recognize that us not stepping up in this moment is saying, hey, the trajectory is going in one direction and I'm okay with that, and it's going to keep going in that direction. So again, honesty is really important, but if you're really trying to improve, don't hide behind authenticity.
Yeah, and I think we talk a big game when it comes to improvement, and we go to conferences, we read books and listen to podcasts, and I think we're constantly improving. I hear that from a lot of people who want to build better cafes or be better managers and all these things, but I don't think it's as planned out as what you're mentioning. You're mentioning something that's very specific about having an internal conversation about your behaviors. And like the test drive, again, you're going to actually apply what you know to do, even if it's uncomfortable to do it. And people will give up if it doesn't work at first. So you might clean your closet, right, once. And well, where's the payoff? How do we get over the idea that we need a certain degree of payoff that we're used to in the time frame we're used to, when the new habits that we have to sort of develop take time to deliver that payoff? So it's that what bridges the gap between the beginning of execution and the development of identity and the receiving of the benefit from that new version of yourself?
Yeah, great question. Because the key is recognizing that benefits look different at different times. Mm-hmm. Because if I go to school, if I start in an undergraduate program and I do one day of school and I complete my homework, that is not a degree. And if I if I judge my success on whether or not I have a degree, then that means I have, 3.9 years of failure until I actually get the degree. It's about recognizing those little things. And this is where the shaping identity portion of it comes into play. Because for me, when I started cleaning my closet, it's not like the gates of heaven opened up or anything miraculous like that. I just said, oh, you know what? I find my stuff really fast. I'm going to start paying attention. I'm going to think about, again, it's experimental. So what are the metrics that I'm going to pay attention to? Efficiency, cognitive load. I don't feel stressed when I walk past my closet. Like these little things. If it's going to the gym, okay, what are some metrics of success? You've been at the gym with me, so you know I've got all these friends there. It's like a homecoming every time. So, all right, I made a new gym friend. I don't need to visibly be able to see new gains, but if I see a new friend, that's good, and that is something that's positive that keeps me coming back to the gym, right? I can think about the transferal of discipline, because when you think about discipline, willpower, they function a lot like a muscle, like muscles do, because you can get it better and stronger with time.
Yeah.
And so when I say, all right, I'm going to, in other situations, I would just, it's after work, had a long day, I got up early to go to the gym, took care of my family, took care of business, and now it's about 8:30. I just want to turn my brain off, do some Instagram, play some chess, something like that. And then I realize, oh, there's something that I need to do. I should clean up my closet. Okay, I do that, right? But then later I remember, oh, I meant to clean the dishes. Well, I did the closet. I could do the dishes too. Okay, well, while I'm here, Dominic's he needs to make his lunch. I could do that too. And so what's interesting is that there are these trickle-down benefits that you start to recognize that come from these different decisions. So I don't just think about the decision, the activity, and the return on investment. I think about the position that decision put me in and what came next. And what's really interesting is that it's just like anything else. If I put, again, I'm a chess nerd, I love this. If I put my piece in the right position, I don't need to fully appreciate all of the opportunities that could come from putting my piece in that position. I just know that better things happen when it's in the position. But I do know if it's out of position, there are going to be fewer opportunities. I don't even need to fully appreciate all of the risks and the opportunities I'm missing out on to understand that. Yeah. So what often ends up happening is that you start to, by making better decisions, put yourself in better positions to get lucky. And this is one of the things that's been really important in my strategy. I call it strategic luck. So what can I do and how can I create strategies that avail me to not just win in one narrow sense, but even if I lose, I still find a way to get something valuable out of it. So if you start a podcast, you know that it doesn't just take off immediately, but you do know that as you start to produce more episodes, you avail yourself to compound interest. Okay, so let's say I put out an episode, only 10 people listen to it the first time. Okay, great. If I can get 11 the next time, 12 the next time, and then get people to share, eventually the network effect dictates that it'll just naturally by the numbers grow. Yeah. And the more people that know that I'm competent in this topic, the more people who possibly know that they could work with me. I always know that there's a certain percentage of my audience that I'm going to be able to convert. So I know that if I continue to do this long enough, good things happen. And then you do that over the course of 10 years, and then you've got all of these big clients. And so again, when you think about not just the decisions that you're making, but the trickle-down benefits and positioning yourself well, not just for the outcome that you're looking for, but also to strategically get lucky, now you start to see the compounding effects of this mentality. Yeah. So what I'm recognizing is not just big swings, it's big ripple effects too.
You're mentioning all of the strategic luck is the batting cage, is the practice.
Yes.
All of the many hours of just slogging through to, in the moment when the opportunity comes up, you're ready to go. But in the moment, if you haven't, then it seems like it just passes you by. Then you'll blame luck or you'll blame fate. But if you were practicing being ready to do those, to take that big swing, then you could take it and it will be successful. So there is an element of preparation that an entrepreneur needs, and the identity of holding things with an open hand, or that there is no such thing as real certainty, comes into this, right? So how do we go about practicing when we can't technically change everything about our business? Because you vacillate between like wanting to burn it all down and then promote it. Maybe I'll take out ads, maybe I'll sell it, but we know that there is a limited amount that we can change. So we start changing ourselves first. But how do we practically practice that related to, let's say, something specific, like the way that we show up for our team? Specifically, coffee shops are known for being elbow to elbow with people. A lot of cafe owners are working with their direct reports, their baristas and their trainers. So it feels like maybe the first place to show up as a different person or to take a big swing would be with the thing that you can change the quickest, which is yourself. So what are some practical steps that they can do as it relates to other people and being effective in those relationships?
Brilliant question. What I would say is this. Think about what are the things that you could do that would be the highest leverage for you. So for instance, if you were to spend 15 minutes more on email, okay, that is something that could be done. But is it going to give you the biggest ROI? What if you said, all right, if I have 5 people on my team on Monday, Wednesday, on each of these days, so like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm going to take 5 minutes and have a conversation with one of my team members, and all I'm going to do is listen. No tips, no advice, no suggestions. I'm just going to ask questions, listen, and demonstrate my understanding. That's it. What happens then? Just experiment with that for a week, right? And so what I want you to do is, it doesn't need to be something massive, because the bigness of the swing is not necessarily how entirely you're shifting your life. It is the return on investment, because just injecting 5 minutes of compassionate, empathetic conversation to a relationship will do wonders. Yeah. We have to remember it only takes one person to improve the quality of a relationship, just one. And when it comes to leadership, one of the questions that people will have subconsciously about their leader is, do they even care? What's the easiest way to show somebody that you care? Listen to them. That's the number one way to show that you care and that you respect somebody, is to listen. And the magical part about this, Chris, is that you're going to find yourself being accidentally persuasive just by asking questions and listening. You go in with a stated agenda of nothing. My stated agenda is to show you that I care. And then they say, you know what, Chris, a couple weeks ago you mentioned doing this. After we started talking more, I started to do that. It's like, you never even brought it back up. They just decided to make this shift. So it can be almost magical. So I think just figuring out what is the highest leverage thing you can do, and then starting to implement that. Now, one of the biggest things that will get in the way, and I will concede that my solution to this at this moment is quite primitive. So maybe I will evolve later and figure out something better. But for now, it's really simple. So one of the biggest challenges to these identity shifts is going to be the limitation of our memory. You're just going to forget. When you're trying to do something, you're just going to forget it. And when we think about it, from a psychological perspective, it helps us to understand this. We just have patterns. Most of our decisions are automatic. So if you were to start paying attention to it, you probably put on the same shoe first every single time, right? Right. One of my favorite examples is with Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, the basketball player. He was on like 10 plus different NBA teams. Toward the end of his career, he was bouncing everywhere. And but what's interesting is that he would strike the same pose in each of those jerseys with his arms folded, and every time it was the same arm over the other arm. Yeah. If you asked him, he probably wouldn't know that, but it's a pattern. And when you think about identity shifts, the biggest challenge is the fact that you're going to have a set of cascading decisions that are connected to each other that you don't even recognize. And so it's not so much identity as it is just habitual patterns of behavior, right, that manifest into an identity over time. And so what I do to remind myself is I just have an obnoxious amount of alarms set on my phone at all times.
Okay.
And so I have this alarm app called Alarmy, and it sounds ridiculous, but I pay like $50 a year for this alarm. It's very aggressive, and you can make it so that you have to type in different thick codes in order for the alarm to stop, and it's louder than a normal alarm. So, for instance, with the picking out my clothes for the week, that's something that I wanted to start doing. So now I have it set on Sunday to go off, and it just, in order for the alarm to stop harassing me, I have to write out, spies always pick out their clothes for the week. So, and so it forces me to say, okay, this is what I will do. And so then I feel hypocritical if I type all of that out and then go back on the couch eating potato chips, not picking out my clothes, right?
Yeah.
So just being intentional about figuring out how you're going to actually remind yourself to do these things is going to be important, because it's going to take a lot of effort to do this with consistency at first, because it's not in flow. But once you can start to remind yourself, now you can actually have the anatomy of a true habit, which is the cue, the response, and the reward. My hypothesis is that the world is so noisy and we're so constantly distracted that the typical cues that might have worked 20, 30 years ago just go so far beneath the surface that they don't even register as signals to do the thing. So for now, I'm using my alarms to harass me and everybody around me.
That's great. It sounds like you have to fight for it ahead of time, not just wait until the moment, right? Plan for resistance. Usually from yourself. It's the whole Stephen Pressfield, the war of art and the doing the work. Like the resistance is there to prevent you from doing the one thing that if you're feeling a lot of resistance, that's the thing that stands between you and the next level of your business, right? It's kind of a reverse thing. Like go further into that bad feeling, because it's almost a sign that that's exactly what you should do.
Yes. 100%. Yeah, and I think to that point, a couple of things. A lot of times, like I said, with difficult conversations, my mantra is the best things in life are on the other side of difficult conversations. When I think about things that hold us back, one of the biggest things that holds us back is fear. So I have to renegotiate my relationship with these things. Everybody's going to have their different points of failure. And what I've started to do is predetermine what is an acceptable excuse leading to failure, right? So fear no longer is acceptable. So I don't run from fear. I try to hunt fear. That's the mentality. It's like, fear, you think you're chasing me? I'm chasing you. Okay, now the game has changed. Right. So here's an example. I love this. So because I need to see it everywhere, because I recognize that the biggest improvements in my life have come after I've done something really scary. So I was with my son at the gym, and they had this horrendous idea. They had 2 hot tubs. They turned one hot tub into a cold tank, like a cold plunge. Everybody loves this. I'm a Caribbean American, man. I don't like the cold. That's not what we do. And so I'm just trying to have a good time, be warm in the hot tub. And Kai said, why don't you go in the cold plunge? And I go in, I put my toe in it, and I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that today. And I said, you sounded kind of scared, Kwame. You sounded kind of scared. And so immediately I went in, right? And this is an example, because of course you can see how this could become cartoonish and self-destructive. Yeah. So you need to be mindful, but it's just these little micro experiments that you want to do in safe, controlled environments, because you know the payoff later. Another example is I refuse to accept forgetfulness as an excuse. If I don't want to do something, like I said, I just need to be honest with myself about not wanting to do it and owning it. Yeah. But to say to myself, oh, I forgot, that's not a legitimate excuse. Because if I were to tell you or anybody listening, hey, listen, I'm going to put a briefcase filled with $1 million. I'm going to put it in your son's closet, okay? All you need to do is remember it's there. Will you remember it?
Yeah.
Yes. And if you have some issue with amnesia or something, you will write all sorts of notes everywhere. We can guarantee a lot of other things, but for sure, you will not forget where that thing is located. And so the thing is, if I forgot, then number one, that's predictable. I should put in mechanisms to make sure that I don't forget. And the second thing is, if I truly wanted to do it, I wouldn't have. And so again, if I don't want to do it, I give myself permission not to do it, but I won't give myself the excuse of saying, I forgot.
Yes.
And when we see the consistency of points of failures in our life, it's really troubling to see, wow, pretty consistently I'm labeling the exact same reasons as the reason why I can't do what I want to do or be who I want to be. And again, the question you want to ask yourself is, are you the kind of person who is going to let forgetfulness stop you from living the life of your dreams for you, your spouse, your kids, and the betterment of your community? Is that if that's what you want to let slow you down, just know.
Yeah.
And then usually people say, okay, you know what? No, we got to change something.
Yeah. And people have to be honest that they want this kind of thing, but they accept another version because it's easier. And that's what people say is, this is who I am. And, at a certain point, you might get a little bit too focused on, I'm going to constantly be worrying that I'm not pursuing big enough things. I'm never going to be fulfilled. I'm never going to be happy with who I am because I'm always doubting who I am because maybe I can be more. I get that there's like an extreme you can go to here. But I think the extreme that people don't ever consider is that they've just kind of given up.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And if you have given up, understand why that's happened and whether or not you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I am completely okay. Think about this. Chris, we've been friends for almost a decade now.
That's right.
And so, mind you, my background, I'm a lawyer and I run this company. We work with some of the biggest companies in the world, Google, Apple, NASA, Intel, whatever, right? Can you describe to the audience my relationship with email?
I would say you don't do it.
Exactly. Can you think of another thought leader who has that philosophy?
I wish I could.
Exactly. And so here's the thing, because I said to myself, there is a hole in my game where I don't do well with email. I don't like it. It does not bring me joy. I think it's an oppressive technology. And I said, my business would probably do better if I got better at checking email and did it more consistently. And then I got really honest with myself and I said, Chris, I don't want to be that guy. I just fundamentally don't want to be that guy. So I said, okay, hypothetically, would it be possible to have a high degree of success if you built the proper systems around not checking email, where you had a team who can manage that for you? Would it be possible? And I said, yeah. Okay, well, let's make it possible. Right. And so that's an example of me saying when you think about just business fundamentals, email is like breathing in the corporate Western world. Yeah. And I said, hey, listen, I'm not into breathing. Apparently, I'm not doing that. Okay. And so sometimes you want to do something, and sometimes you want to be a person who wants to do things. And if it's the latter, just own the fact that you're not that person. And that's okay. There's nobody who's perfect at everything. Right. We're all going to have our flaws. For me, my thing is just pick them with intentionality. So if I'm thinking about myself as the author of my own life, there's also a co-author named Fate that will run in, scribble something on the paper, run away, and it's your job to make the best out of it. And when I think about the book that I'm writing, it is my personal book of life that I'm going to look at in totality. And I have to ask myself, am I the kind of character that I want to follow and root for? Do I need my character to have certain things? Do I want him to have certain things? And I recognized I wanted him to have a clean closet, and I'm okay with him not checking emails. That's okay.
Yeah. And I think a good step here as we wrap up for people is to think about how they can think in honesty after hearing this. And I always kind of come back to this on the show is you can consume this and you can scroll, and it's just the way we do things. We consume a lot of content. We don't really do much with it. But this is one of those moments where you should have that kind of a conversation with yourself the way you've demonstrated here. What am I going to do with this information? Especially if this has resonated with you and you have maybe that one or two things that maybe came to mind while we were talking. that's a signal, that's a sign that you maybe should have a conversation and start taking steps to do something with that. And maybe take that big swing, right? And I want people to be able to find you in all of the places to keep in touch with what Big Swings is doing. So
Yes.
let us know where they can do that.
Yes, so follow me in LinkedIn and Instagram, and if you're interested in working with me, checking out the stuff we have, we do negotiation, conflict resolution trainings. We also have a Kwame AI, who I describe as since we cloned my voice, it is like me with perfect memory but less charisma.
There you go.
It's actually very good at coaching. And for the folks who are out there trying to take a big swing, of course, Big Swings Only will launch in July. But here's the thing. If you are listening to a show like this, if you're a high achiever, then you are one who has many thoughts. You're a deep thinker. And sometimes that can be antithetical to becoming the person that you want to be. Because instead of doing, you start thinking, right? And so instead of thinking, I want you to start doing. That's
Nice.
the goal. And as you've been listening, I'm sure there is one thing that has come to mind. You know what? I wonder what my life would be like if I did this, or if I was this, or acted this way. Whatever that thing was, that's your big swing.
Thank you, Kwame. Really appreciate this conversation. Always good to see you.
Likewise, brother. Appreciate you.
Okay, everybody. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode. Go check out KwameChristian.com. You can stay plugged in with all the articles, the podcasts, workshops, and everything that Kwame Christian offers to you to help you overcome the fear of taking big swings or negotiate conflict and having difficult conversations, even if those difficult conversations are with yourself. So a huge thank you to Kwame for being on the show. We really appreciate you. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback from me about today's episode, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com if you need coaching or consulting for your coffee shop. And when I say need, I mean, do you feel like you could probably benefit for somebody with an outside perspective, somebody who's not in the day-to-day of your business, but has been deep in the weeds with clients nearly 100 times in the last 10 years, doing that work to get a broader perspective, to get insights that are born from the hands-on research and coaching with actual coffee shop owners over the last 10 years. That's what Keys to the Shop brings to the table for you. 27 years of coffee experience in leadership and management, operations management, as well as the 10 years of working with operators just like yourself to help people build great businesses from the ground up, or to take their already existing and successful businesses and make them more successful. That is what I do. So let's take some time to have a conversation. Go into the show notes. You can find a link to have a discovery call, a free discovery call. We're going to talk all about what's going on in your cafe and how I can help you through Keys to the Shop consulting. Just takes one conversation. So go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. So that's it for me, everybody. Thank you so much. As always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.